Hey everybody, it's Ann Copeland from Mom Me, your mama resource from conception to college. Wherever you are on your momming journey, we are here for you. And today I am so excited about the topic that we're talking about this week, which is gender. And today I'm especially excited because I am going to be watching with my awesome friend Erin. And I am going to be, oh, here she comes. Here she comes. Yay! This works. It says I'm adding you. Let's see. There she is. Hi, Erin. Yay! Oh, this is so
Wow.
So I was really excited for everybody in the group. I'm really excited to talk about this topic. I've been simultaneously, it's kind of funny how the universe comes together, but I've been simultaneously experiencing this from a million different angles, watching my youngest son, Sky, who's been definitely the person who's pressed the sort of gender norm the most of all four of my kids, and seeing people's reactions over the last couple of years. Wow, coincidentally, making one of my dear friends, Erin, go through this transition experience and watching and learning how that works for the first time that I've ever experienced for myself personally, of knowing somebody who's going through that experience. And then been stewing about talking about this in the group for a long time. And then this last couple of weeks had a couple of really inspiring conversations with people that made it even more apparent how important this topic is. So I just really want to thank you, Erin, for being here to talk with us and sort of shed some light on some things that I think even parents might be embarrassed to admit that they're thinking about.
It's good to be here. Thanks for the invite, Ann.
Yeah, of course. So today we a sneak peek behind the curtain, everybody. Erin and I already talked about what we're going to talk about. So last week, when Erin and I talked about what we wanted to talk about on this call, I kind of shared with her, usually on Tuesdays, it's my Mythbusters day. And I think that's the perfect day to bring somebody in here who can really bust some myths when it comes to gender and kids. Because not only have you gone through all these experiences yourself as an adult, but you also have experienced what it's like to grow up and have a childhood and experience that from a place of a different perspective on gender than probably most parents are imagining for their children, or maybe even like projecting onto their children. So I just feel really honored that you're going to share that perspective with us today. And one of the first myths we came up with when we were talking last week was that your gender is a choice.
Yeah, we talked about that one. I don't know if you want to take the lead on this and go through that and ask me questions, but I think my biggest point is a lot of times people think that I chose my gender at some point, or that I'm just choosing different clothes, and neither of those things are true. In my head, my brain, fully functioning work, professional job, and everything else, but I'm female, and I always have been. And there was never a day I think everyone in the world probably agrees with me. No one ever sat down and chose their gender, right? So it's not like, I'm choosing a lifestyle, I'm choosing this gender lifestyle. It's something I've known since I was young. Some people say they've known it since they were 4 or 5 or 6. I would say for me, it was a little bit later, maybe 7, 8, or 9. But still, again, I never sat down and chose to be male or female. This is what happened.
Yeah. And I think what came up for me, kind of putting my parent coaching hat on as I was listening to you talking, is like, this concept that I talk with my clients about all the time, whether we're talking about gender or brushing your teeth even, it's like our job as parents is not to control our children, to decide for them what their life is supposed to be, or put that on them. A person's gender is not their choice, but a parent does have the choice. The choice a parent has in this instance is to either support and love unconditionally their child, or to kind of scare or judge or kind of freak out, either be fearful themselves or instill fear in their child, and thereby separate and harm and weaken their relationship with their child. You know, the person with the choice in this dynamic is the parent, and the choice is in their reaction.
Yeah.
I
would agree with that.
Mm-hmm. And
I know coming from an environment that wasn't supportive, I still suffered the same pain that I think any kid could, only that pain was just longer. You know, it was until I had the ability to overcome that suppression and, you know, so it just prolongs, I mean, in a non-supportive environment, it just prolongs a kid's pain.
Right. To me, it feels like you can't change who your child is supposed to be, whether we're talking about gender or anything else in life. You can't change who your child is, but you know, fighting who they are is just a way to make them still be the same thing, but have a lot of pain around it. You know, so it's like it's going to be the same. It's whether it has to be as painful or not painful. Second myth that we talked about last week was that the way that you parent your child can actually make your child have a certain gender or not. You know, if you let your kids play with Barbie dolls when they're male, or when you let your son wear a dress or something like that, that's actually going to affect whether or not that person decides later on to live in a different gender identity than the one they were given at birth.
Mm-hmm.
And so, you know, I'd love to hear from you, you know, your experience of that, or what advice would you give to parents when they're struggling with, you know, what should I do if my son is wearing a dress, or my daughter wants to play with toes? What's your advice for parents on things like that?
Yeah, I think we both had kind of a combined giggle when we talked the other day, that parents come to me with pictures of their 4 or 5-year-olds in, you know, Elsa dresses or whatever else. And the first, they're just like, look at my kid, and they're proud. And, you know, I usually look and say, yeah, that's amazing. That's awesome. And I love the fact that the parent is comfortable with the child in the dress. Usually, you know, it's a boy, you know, pronounced male at birth. And you've got this picture of this boy in the dress, and you say, that's great. And then usually they ask me trepidatiously, do you think my kid is trans? And to me, I'm thinking, no, they just love the fabulous dress, right? And why wouldn't they? As a 4 or 5-year-old, they've got this sparkly dress. That's amazing. Yeah, just because they do that doesn't make the child trans, and probably doesn't increase the possibility that they are trans. So, you know, I had girls' toys, or what would be traditionally called girls' toys, dolls and whatnot, taken from me when I was a child by unsupportive family members. And again, it didn't do anything except create shame. I still played with the G.I. Joes, and I still turned out, you know, coming out as female later in life. So you have no control over that. Now, I will say, and a lot of parents know this, research, it's only about, I think about 1 in 20, if I'm not mistaken, kids that look at, you know, younger kids that look at, you know, cross-gender types of, you know, engagement in cross-gender, what people see as cross-gender things, and that end up being actually trans. So you know, it's not that the 19 out of 20 parents did something differently than that one parent. It just comes down to that, you know, that child's sense of identity, and you can't change that. So you can take the dolls away, you'll make the kid miserable. You can take the G.I. Joes and trucks away from your daughter, or who you perceive as your daughter, pronounced female at birth. It doesn't mean you're not going to still have that challenge. So either way, I mean, allowing your kid exploration and joy, or whether you're giving them shame and taking something from them that they enjoy.
When I think, you know, something I've heard from clients before is a fear that even though they love their child no matter what, and nothing could get in the way of that, they're trying to protect their child from what the rest of the world is going to do to them if it turns out that they are TG or whatever. And
Mhm.
I think that's, I understand that mindset of like, of course, as parents, we always want to try to shield our children from pain or whatever, but it's such a wrong-headed notion. It's a wrong-headed notion for the first part, which is that you can't protect your children from pain. Half of life is unpleasant, and your child's no different. Like, it's our right as human beings to experience the highs and lows of life, and we don't need someone to protect us from that. And second of all, that if your child is who your child is, and if you decide to try to change that, you're just going to be another voice that's trying to change your child. You know what I mean? Like, it's not going to protect your child.
Right. And I think that you're affecting change on the wrong side of that mechanism. I mean, if there's bullying going on in the schools, the problem isn't with your trans child or your possibly trans child or your non-traditionally identifying child. It's the problem is with the bullies.
Right.
So I know
Powerful.
you can't necessarily always control the bullies. I know that GSAs, gay straight alliances in schools have gone a long way in helping to get rid of the bullying towards LGBT kids. And I think that they've helped not just when your school has them, it helps not just LGBT kids. You see bullying go down and child depression and everything else go down. So
Right.
really, parents need to think about it, the child that's possibly trans is not the problem in the bullying equation. The problem
Right.
is fixing what's going on in the bullying side.
Right. And protecting your child isn't going to come from you changing your child. It's from standing in alliance with your child. That's where your child
Correct.
is safe and protected.
I think that that's true as well. If you can't correct the bullying, then maybe that's not going to happen, but you can create a stronger child that can stand up to that type of thing by standing behind your child.
Right. I find that so powerful. Really, really powerful. And I think the biggest kind of myth that came out as like sort of towards the end of our conversation last week actually was like all of these things about like, oh, well, look, my kid's wearing a dress. I'm so proud. But do you think they're going to be trans? Or, oh, don't worry because playing with dresses doesn't make your kid trans or whatever. Is this underlying assumption that being trans is something to try to avoid, or that it's bad or wrong? And I think that underlying all other things is the acceptance that people are who they are, and that's wonderful and perfectly lovely, and it doesn't matter, truthfully, that's the kind of foundational piece that affects change in all of these pieces of like trying to change what our kids play with and trying to protect our kids from other people and seeing our children's identity as a choice. All of those things, first of all, come from this origin of this is bad in the first place.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And again, that's just creating shame on the child. If you change your perspective and wish for a happy, healthy child, I think, you might not view their demonstrations if they're looking at things that are non-traditionally male or female. Those are innate things. It doesn't really matter. That's really just their happiness and their health that you're protecting.
Right. Well, I just think your story is so inspirational, Erin, and not only that you were brave enough to proclaim your identity and do something about it, but also that you've taken that experience and turned it into a movement. And I'd love for you to share a little bit about that for us, because I know that everybody in this group is going to be really interested to know about it. I find it really amazing. So.
Yeah, for sure. So I think that, even though we've had a lot of discussions over glasses of wine and the kitchen table and everything, discussing this before, but
glasses of wine, maybe.
maybe sometimes, who knows? So I think what happens is kids particularly become afraid of their identities, and they get some shame in their identities, and then that kind of grows. So, I recognize that, and in my case, what that grew into was over 3 decades of hiding. And instead of living a life that I knew who I was for 3 decades, I decided to hide. And I think that the LGBT plus community really has a kind of a lack of visible characters, and historically has, kids have it better nowadays, but when we were kids and 30 years ago, you didn't quite have it. So my goal was to continue my life. I didn't want my life to change because I came out as trans. And I was a big traveler, and I was into adventure sports and outdoor sports. So I didn't want to lose that. And I also was hoping that I could in some way encourage kids and younger adults and even people my age or older to be visible and to try at least test the waters if they felt safe. So with my own visibility, I decided sports was also another venue where, the trans population suffered high rates of suicide and poverty, underemployment. Just we've had some negative societal outcomes that I wanted to counter. So I looked at sports as a way to get around that, and I saw visibility as something that could help with overcoming the stigmatization and the marginalization that the LGBT community kind of sees. So I took on a project to climb the 7 summits, which is going to the highest point in every continent, the highest mountain, and standing on top of that mountain and basically proclaiming that I'm not changing my life. I'm going to do the outdoor adventure sports and travel the world because I feel safe doing that. So I've assessed it and I feel safe in doing that. Now, I also want to show people that I'm proud, that I'm going to go and stand on the highest point that I can and say, this is who I am. And hopefully that encourages other people just to say, if even for a little bit or to a different friend or just anyone, at least proclaim themselves, because it's lonely when you're kind of hiding. So I want to encourage people maybe not to hide, whether that means to talk to 1 or 2 or 3 people and see that there's an accepting community out there, or whether that means to come out like I did. So and the final thing is, for my whole life, I feel like I've been relegated to shadows. So in climbing the 7 summits, I hope to just pop above where there's any shadows left. We get to the highest point where there's just nothing left to cast a shadow on you. So in that regard, I've been happy. I've been proud to climb those summits. It's never been done by a trans person, and Mount Everest has never been climbed by a trans person. So hopefully when this whole thing is done, trans people have the examples set, and we can see that this has been done. We've had a trans person climb the highest mountain in every continent. It's been done 420 times, but never by a trans person. So it's my project. I've done 3 of the mountains so far, and I'm really excited to march forward on those next 4 mountains.
What's your next mountain going to be?
So January 20 something, right in the middle of the mid whatever, January 20th or something, I head to Aconcagua. We got the tickets booked and everything. The expedition is all put together. So I'm going to the Andes in Argentina to climb Mount Aconcagua, which is just a hair under 23,000 feet.
Holy cow.
So it's 4,000 feet higher than I've ever been. And we're going to go to the top of South America and say, it's okay to be who you are, like be proud, show it. Yeah.
What I think is, I really hope the take home message from this video of like listening to you, what you're doing and how you are inspiring people around you. Like, think about this. If your child is somebody just like Erin, what parent wouldn't be beyond the moon, like over the moon proud to call you their daughter? Like, this is what I want for my children, to be somebody who lives who they are, who's not ashamed of it, who has a passion, who has a vision, who goes after it fearlessly. And not only that, but inspires the people around them. Like, how is this not what we're striving for as parents? And then when you think about it in terms like that, like, oh, putting on an Elsa dress, like, really, we're going to talk about that. Who gives a crap?
The one thing I'll add to that is when you hide, when you're hiding, and when you're trying as hard as I did to hide, you spend a lot of time running, you spend a lot of time in fear, and you spend a lot of time hiding. And all of that effort for me is I could now pour into something else, something positive. And I can avoid all of the negative things, whether it be alcoholism or drug abuse or, abusive relationships. I can get away from that stuff. If we relegate people to bad places and make them hide, they'll they're marginalized and they'll be subject to those negative outcomes. But if you stop hiding, you stop running, and you stop being afraid, it is amazing what you can do. And you'll see, I think, trans kids especially be able to put their energy, instead of hiding and all these other negative things, into going to school, into being, or pursuing a trade, and not have to worry about, hiding and all the energy that they put, that wasted energy. So to me, it's like, stop wasting your energy and put that energy into something positive. So, and that's just living your life.
Yes, I talk to my adult clients about this. Like, you have a gift, you have something in you that you are put on this earth to share and give. And living when you're not in alignment with yourself and denying who you are, all that does is stop yourself from being able to shine whatever light it is that you have within you that you were meant to shine. And I totally agree.
Yeah.
I don't want that for my children. Of course not. I want them to shine brightly. Actually, every day when I drop Gigi off at school, I say, don't forget to shine your light.
I love Gigi.
Yeah. I love you, Erin. I'm so glad that you came on this video with me and shared your experience. And tell us the name of your organization for anybody who wants to support you in any way we can, whether it's following you, donating money to you, talking about how amazing you are.
That would be great. My organization is called TranSending. Basically, there's the concept in mountaineering or mountain biking that you send it, right? When you do something big, you pull the big move, you send it. So it's just TRAN, just like transgender, but without the S, and then sending, the word, just SENDING. So transending.org. You can donate on our website. We're a 501c3 dedicated to inclusion and diversity in sports. You can donate right on our website. I'll probably put another Facebook donation up in the next month or two. Basically, all of the money goes to a not-for-profit to support trans inclusion, basically, in sports, and changing the narrative from marginalization to celebration. So that's what we're looking to do.
That's so awesome. Well, I'm going to put a link in the comments on this video so people don't have to look at all to find your. Thank you, Erin, so much. I feel so honored to have this as our kickoff to this theme this week. And, I feel really honored and grateful for you to chime in on any videos that we're doing this week, anybody's comments or shares. Like, the more that we can have a really open conversation, I just think it's so powerful and really, once again, inspirational for any parent of any child, truly. So
yeah, and anybody's free to PM me if they need to ask me a question privately. I'll always answer a question. So if you've got a client that just has a concern or wants it to be asked privately, I'm always free to answer a question.
That's so wonderful. Thank you so much, Erin.
Thank you.
Thank you guys all for being here with me today and me and Erin. And stay tuned all week long, because we're going to be talking about gender all week. So tomorrow I'll be talking about gender when it comes to having a dog in the race of whether you have a girl or a boy during your pregnancy. And on Thursday, we're going to talk about actually tips and tricks to actually shift the way that you are parenting and reacting to your child, to become a little bit more supportive and understanding of the whole process of gender identity, which is very fluid in young children and very normal for them to be curious and exploratory. And we just want to let that happen on its own normal, natural progression. Love you guys so much. Love you, Erin. Thank you.
Thank you.
And we'll talk again soon, everybody. Bye.
Wonderful. Bye.